And an example of that, for people that know the work of Jerry Mander, not the political word, but the writer, he wrote a book called The Four Arguments for the Elimination of Television. And in that book, one of the studies they did in Canada, they had the good fortune of being able to watch a Inuit Native American village as electricity was introduced, and they studied it to see what would happen. So they basically determined it took 5 years to destroy their traditional culture once television. 5 years. And I saw that firsthand in Mauritania, because I lived with Bedouin. I was in a town that had no electricity. Every night it was literally chanting. The whole village was chanting the Quran. It was like bees buzzing, and it was one of the most extraordinary things. And then you had the sky. See, I think one of the reasons why we've lost our spirituality is because of artificial light. And it's interesting we call it artificial light, because if you look up at the sky in the Sahara Desert, and I've been reduced to tears on many nights, just look, the heavens declare your glory.
I've been in the Sinai. I know. It's breathtaking.
It's breathtaking, and there's a reason why those guys fled to the desert, you know. Because if you want to be close to the heavens, that's as close as you're going to get. We don't see the stars anymore. You know, Plato said God put the stars there to show us the order of the heavens, that we would desire to bring the order down into ourselves. So what happens when we don't see the heavens anymore? And I would really like to see a city, you might think of this, Mayor Fisher might think of just having an hour, you know, once a month, where all the lights in the city are turned off on a clear night, so that people can actually go out and see the heavens. Just see the heavens. It's amazing. Stars are amazing.
I'm the chair of the planetarium, which if you think about it for a second is a sad reality, which is that in cities we built places where you can see the stars because we project them. But at least then
they do it geocentrically. Nobody points that out, that when you're in a planetarium, they don't have you revolving around the heavens. They have the heavens revolving around you.
It's the ultimate
So they have to do a Ptolemaic planetarium.
But please visit us at the planetarium so you'll know what to look for in the sky.
But I think we need to have time with ourselves alone, where we can just disengage and turn off all these things. I have a friend of mine, he's an imam in Washington D.C., who has a box in the front of his house, and when everybody comes in, they have to put the cell phones in the box, and they're not allowed to use any cell phones inside the house. And he's a Sudanese man, and I thought that was really an excellent practice. I think a lot of us need to disengage from the madness of these constantly being, you know, texting and getting called. We don't have to answer the phone every time it rings. You know, you really don't.
Now you're really sounding revolutionary.
Huh?
It's true.
Narcissism was, you know, it was, I think, it was designated in the 1970s in that famous book, The Culture of Narcissism. You know, he saw something that nobody was seeing at the time, how narcissistic our culture was coming. I think the selfie is just such an indicative aspect of our civilization. This idea of just taking your own picture. You know, I've never carried a camera. I've never taken pictures. I don't have any pictures of myself. I've been all over the world. I've been in the, you know, I met the Pope, you know, and had a picture with the Pope. And, you know, I've just never had that urge to have these pictures. You know, my wife, because some people send us things and she wants to put them up. I said, I don't want them on the wall. You know, I don't want to do that. And I don't get that thing about pictures. You know, like for me, this is where I take my pictures. I try to be present with people and remember them as best I can. And I learned this from the Bedouin, because what really struck me about the Bedouin that I lived with is they were so present. And I would meet a Bedouin that I'd met 10 years before. He would remember what we talked about, the conversation we had. And they don't take pictures because they know. And so this whole obsession with images, the New York Times recently reported that the average American sees more images in one day than a 19th century English person saw in his entire lifetime. And these images are flooding our hearts. We're losing that space. the imageless space. One of the things when Trajan went into the holiest of holies, the thing that really disturbed him was there was nothing in there. And he wanted the Jews to explain, like, where's your idols? Where's your images? It's an empty place. And so that emptiness, we have to have that emptiness to be able to contemplate. And I would recommend reading Neil Postman's incredible book, Amusing Ourselves to Death, and that second chapter about why the Decalogue would have prohibited images. Because he argues that if you want people to understand abstractions, you have to watch out for the images that you give them. And God wants us to know something, a concept that is so abstract. And this is why image-based cultures become debased very quickly. So I really think the images are harming us immensely. The pornographic images that are going into the minds of these young kids, it's really terrifying because they can't get these things out. They won't be able to get those images out of their mind. And I know this from, I have people that have converted to Islam or have these problems, and they've told me when they open their prayer, images start flooding and they want to get rid of them. So it's really difficult. Spiritually, it can be done with a lot of work, but you have to be careful what you put into your heart. And I was with a Bedouin. We'd gone from the desert to Nouakchott, and there was a TV in the room, and it was on, and he was looking the other way. And he was a man in his 30s, and he was a student of knowledge, and he was looking the other way. And I was with a Libyan, Abdurrazak Mukhtar. He's the ambassador in Turkey now for Libya. But he asked him, "Have you ever seen television?" He said, "No." He said, "Don't you want to look at it?" And he said, "I heard that it has foul things on it, and I don't want to let it into my heart." And that level of being is just, where are those people?